There exists a future iteration of yourself you've never encountered, someone so ruthlessly controlled, strategically calculated, and unyieldingly persistent that meeting them would unsettle you completely. You'd barely recognize the person staring back. Most people misunderstand what true self-mastery really means. They think it's just early mornings, meal plans, and long hours at the desk. They're completely mistaken. Authentic discipline isn't simply a routine you follow. It's warfare waged against every fragile impulse inside you. It's staring directly at your feelings, your exhaustion, your rationalizations, and silencing them without hesitation. The philosopher from Florence understood this instinctively. He didn't compose guides for the morally pure. He wrote manuals for those seeking strategic dominance. He grasped that maintaining authority in a turbulent reality requires eliminating softness. You cannot afford predictability. You must transform into an unstoppable phenomenon. When you achieve genuine self-control, people do more than admire you. They become uncomfortable in your presence. They detect something fundamental has shifted. They witness someone who's immune to manipulation now, someone who's stopped bargaining with their own consciousness. And that realization terrifies them deeply. Because someone who cannot be defeated by their internal dialogue cannot be defeated by external forces either. You've arrived here because something inside you is exhausted, not your muscles. Your spirit is depleted. You're drained by your own unreliability. You're disgusted by commitments you make each morning that evaporate by midday. You're observing others ascend while you remain imprisoned in the identical pattern of temporary inspiration, followed by inevitable surrender. You want the answer to breaking free. You want to construct a mentality that's impenetrable to doubt. I'm going to reveal the method. But understand this warning clearly. This isn't motivational comfort. This is systematic dismantling. We're demolishing the dependent, reactive, feeling-driven version of you so the sovereign can finally surface. We're implementing the merciless strategic principles of that Renaissance thinker into your everyday reality. By this video's conclusion, you'll comprehend why popularity equals vulnerability and why being respected through unwavering consistency represents true liberation. But you must absorb this carefully, because the key isn't what you introduce into your existence. It's what you're prepared to eliminate completely. Most humans exist as captives. Captives to momentary desires, captives to notification screens, captives to judgments from people they secretly despise. The instant you begin this journey, you cease being captive. You become independent. But independence demands sacrifice. Are you prepared to make that exchange? Act 1. The power of strategic quietness. The Florentine strategist once observed that everyone perceives your surface presentation. Very few actually experience your authentic nature. The typical person broadcasts everything constantly. He announces every intention publicly. He documents his training sessions. He declares his transformation on digital platforms before completing even one genuine day of effort. He hunts for external approval before earning any real progress. This guarantees his failure. He releases all internal pressure before the mechanism even ignites. You must choose the opposite path entirely. You must become invisible to observation. Genuine discipline demands concealment. It requires operating in darkness. When you constantly discuss your objectives, you're essentially requesting permission. You're asking the collective, is my ambition acceptable? Stop requesting. The most formidable person in any space is the observer who listens intently, watches carefully, and contributes nothing verbally. When you embrace silence, you generate a void, around yourself. People grow disturbed by this absence. They project their insecurities onto your mystery. They wonder about your hidden activities. They question why their validation no longer matters to you. This quietness becomes defensive armor. It shields your true intentions. When you operate invisibly, you make errors nobody witnesses. You self-correct without outside criticism. You develop capability without interference from external skepticism. Picture vanishing completely for half a year. No proclamations, no justifications, only execution. The training facility, the enterprise, the mental work. You sever the distractions. You eliminate the shallow rewards. You remove the destructive relationships that only appreciate you during self-destructive moments. Then you resurface eventually, but you don't return unchanged. You return more refined, more substantial. Your energy feels transformed entirely. You don't need to announce your evolution verbally. They sense it radiating from you. They observe it in how you carry yourself physically. They detect it in the strategic pauses where you don't speak. This represents the discipline of the phantom. It unsettles people because it mirrors their scattered focus back at them. It reminds them that while they pursued attention desperately, you accumulated genuine power. Start this moment. Stop justifying your choices to anyone. Justification is the vocabulary of the powerless. The powerful don't rationalize their decisions. They simply implement them. If you're exhausted, stop talking and execute. If you're injured, stop talking and recover. If you're succeeding, stop talking and continue succeeding. Your outcomes will communicate loudly, and their message will surpass anything your words could express. Type this declaration if you're ready to enter the void. I construct in silence. Act 2. Transmuting your emotional state. There's a widespread myth that disciplined individuals are emotionless machines, that they don't experience pain or tedium or despair. That's completely false. The disciplined person feels absolutely everything intensely. He feels the temptation to remain sleeping. He feels the sharp pain of being rejected. He feels the crushing desire to surrender entirely. The critical difference is he remains unmoved by these feelings. The Renaissance strategist argued that a leader must never be controlled by emotion, but must instead weaponize emotion strategically. He stated that humans are propelled by two fundamental forces, either through affection or through apprehension. You must apply this framework to yourself internally. You cannot depend on loving the difficult process. You will despise the process at 4 a.m. You will hate everything about it. You cannot rely on fleeting passion. Passion is an unreliable spark that any breeze extinguishes instantly. You require something colder and more permanent. You need obligation. Discipline is performing actions that directly contradict your immediate feelings. It's emotional transmutation. You accept the heavy burden of resistance and you transform it into the treasure of accomplished action. When you stop consulting your emotional state before acting, you become threatening to mediocrity. Consider this reality carefully. If your adversary understands that you only perform when you're inspired, all they must do is wait until you're sad, until you're depleted. Then you become completely vulnerable. But if you're the type who works harder when miserable, who trains harder when heartbroken, who concentrates deeper when enraged, you become impossible to predict. You become immune to external circumstances. This frightens observers deeply. They look at you thinking he should have stopped by now. He should be broken already. They cannot comprehend that you've separated your actions from your feelings entirely. You treat your emotions like atmospheric conditions. You might look outside and see a tempest approaching. You acknowledge its presence without resistance. The storm exists, but you don't abandon your mission because of weather. You dress appropriately and you proceed forward. This is the strategic approach to self-governance. You are the ruler and your emotions are the disorderly population. You acknowledge them, but you never let them control the kingdom. If they rebel, you suppress them immediately. Start implementing the 3-second principle immediately. When the alarm sounds, you have 3 seconds exactly. If you deliberate for 4 seconds, your brain will manufacture justifications to remain comfortable. Your brain is engineered for safety preservation, not achievement orientation. It's a survival tool, not a success instrument. You must circumvent the negotiation process entirely. 1, 2, 3, move immediately. Do not think at all. Thinking becomes the enemy of implementation. In the moment of internal resistance, just move your body. The physical form must obey the command instantly. Over time, you reconstruct your neural pathways completely. You stop being someone who attempts to be good. You become a system that functions regardless of its internal state. This is how you become untouchable by weakness. When your internal condition no longer determines your external performance, you are genuinely free. Act 3. Weaponizing solitary existence. The Florentine philosopher understood that maintaining power often required standing completely alone. He wrote that a wise ruler should depend on what exists within his own control, not what exists in the control of others. Examine your inner circle carefully. Look at the 5 people consuming most of your time. Are they elevating you or are they comfortable with stagnation? Most people are terrified of being alone with themselves. They fill every quiet moment with audio content, music, messaging, scrolling endlessly. They cannot sit in a room with their own thoughts because their thoughts haunt them with the truth. Your thoughts tell you what you're avoiding. You are squandering your potential completely. To become terrifyingly disciplined, you must embrace isolation completely. You must be willing to walk away from people who don't serve the mission. This sounds harsh and unforgiving. It is harsh. It's ruthless. But it's absolutely necessary. When you start to rise, people will attempt to pull you back down. Not because they hate you, but because your growth illuminates their stagnation. You are a mirror reflecting their choices. When you get in shape, the unhealthy friend feels judged by your existence. When you build an enterprise, the complacent friend feels attacked by your ambition. They will say you've changed. You're obsessed. You're no fun anymore. Excellent. Entertainment is the distraction of the mediocre. You are not here for entertainment. You are here for mastery. You must become comfortable with being the villain in their narrative. Let them call you cold and distant. Let them call you arrogant. Let them tell stories about how you think you're superior to everyone else. You don't think you're superior. You just have different standards, and you refuse to lower them to make others comfortable. Isolation is the laboratory of the exceptional. It is in the solitude that you discover who you actually are, without the noise of other people's opinions. You hear your own voice clearly. You clarify your vision precisely. You need to schedule periods of total withdrawal, monk mode, deep work, whatever terminology you prefer. Lock the door, turn off the phone, and face the work alone. In that space, you will encounter demons. You will encounter boredom. You will encounter anxiety, and you will fight them. And when you win that fight in the darkness, you will walk into the light with a confidence that cannot be faked or manufactured. People sense this immediately. They sense a man who does not need them. And ironically, that is exactly what makes them want to follow you. The man who is comfortable alone is the man everyone wants to be around because he is the only one who is not trying to extract something from them. He is complete. Act 4. The terror of unpredictability. The strategist advised that a leader should never be entirely predictable. It is much safer to be feared than loved because love is preserved by the link of obligation which is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. How does this apply to discipline? When you are undisciplined, you are predictable completely. People know you will quit eventually. They know you will complain. They know that if they pressure you enough, you will fold. You are easy to manipulate because your weaknesses are visible to everyone. When you become disciplined, you become a glitch in their matrix entirely. You stop reacting emotionally. Someone insults you. You don't get angry. You look at them, pause, and go back to work. A crisis happens. You don't panic. You analyze. You lose money. You don't cry. You rebuild. This lack of reaction is terrifying to manipulative people. They rely on your emotional volatility to control you. When you remove the buttons they used to push, they are powerless. Your consistency becomes your weapon. Imagine a man who shows up every single day. He doesn't complain. He doesn't brag. He just executes year after year. You cannot stop him. You cannot discourage him. You cannot distract him. That man is scary because he is inevitable. You want to be that man. You want to be the force that cannot be bargained with. This is not about being aggressive. It is about being implacable, like a glacier, slow, silent, but crushing everything in its path. This requires you to kill the part of you that craves sympathy. Stop telling people your problems. Stop posting about your bad days. Stop looking for a pat on the back. When you look for sympathy, you are showing your belly. You are showing the world where you can be hurt. The strategist would tell you to hide your wounds, not because you are ashamed, but because you do not want to give your enemies the satisfaction of knowing they drew blood. Stand up straight. Fix your face. Walk with purpose. Even if your world is burning down, you do not let them see you sweat. This is not faking it. This is framing it. You are framing reality. You are telling the world, I am in control, and eventually you will be. Act 5. The standard of the absolute. Why do you fail? You fail because your standards are too low. You have accepted a version of reality where trying is enough, where almost is okay. You need to raise the floor. The strategists studied the great empires. Rome, Sparta. They didn't fall because of external enemies. They fell because they rotted from within. They lost their discipline. They became soft. Luxury made them weak. You're living in the most luxurious time in human history. You have heating, delivery food, endless entertainment, adult content, sugar, drugs. Everything is designed to make you soft. Everything is designed to sedate you. To be disciplined in this world is an act of rebellion against the system. You must declare war on comfort. You must set standards that seem unreasonable to everyone else. Why do you wake up at 4 a.m? Why do you verify every detail? Why do you refuse to eat that? Because I am not you. That is the internal monologue. You don't say it out loud. You just live it. When you hold yourself to a standard of excellence, you expose the mediocrity of everyone around you. This is why they hate it. Your existence challenges their excuses. If you can do it, why can't they? It's easier for them to call you crazy or obsessed than to admit they are lazy. Let them. The strategic man does not lower himself to be understood by fools. He forces the world to rise to meet him, or he leaves the world behind. You must become ruthless with your time. Time is the only resource you cannot regenerate. Every second you spend arguing with an idiot, scrolling through social media, or worrying about things you cannot control is a second you have stolen from your future empire. Guard your time like a dragon guards gold. Be inaccessible. Be brief. Be direct. When people realize that your time is expensive, they stop wasting it. When they realize your attention is rare, they value it. Discipline creates scarcity, and scarcity creates value. By becoming so disciplined that you are almost mechanical in your execution, you elevate yourself out of the competition. Most people are competing in the average bracket. The air is thin at the top because few have the lungs to breathe there, climb there. The view is different. The silence is different. Act 6, the death of the old self. This is the hardest part. This is the part where you have to hold the funeral. To become the person who scares them, you have to kill the person you used to be. You have to kill the version of you that needs to be liked. You have to kill the version of you that apologizes for having ambition. You have to look at your past, your mistakes, your trauma, your embarrassments. You have to close the door. The strategist said there is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. You are at war with your past self. If you do not kill him, he will kill your future. He will drag you back into the old habits. He will whisper in your ear when things get hard. Just take a break. Just one drink. Just skip the day. You must be ruthless. You're shedding a skin. It is painful. It leaves you raw, but it is the only way to grow. You might lose friends. You might lose a partner. You might be misunderstood by your family. This is the tax you pay for greatness. Do not complain about the tax. Just pay it. Because on the other side of that death is a rebirth. A version of you that is leaner, meaner, and faster. A version of you that operates on logic, not emotion. A version of you that sees the world as a chessboard, not a playground. This new you is scary. He scares you a little bit, doesn't he? He should. Power is always frightening. And you are building power, not power over others. That is tyranny, but power over yourself. That is majesty. When you walk into a room with total self-control, you vibrate at a different frequency. People yield the right of way. They don't know why, but they know you are not to be trifled with. You have that look, the look of a man who has seen the abyss and walked through it. The look of a man who has conquered his own mind. There is no greater victory. As the ancient philosophers knew, as the strategist knew, the man who conquers himself is greater than the man who conquers a city, the final transformation. So what happens when you commit to this? When you truly become this discipline? The noise stops. The anxiety that has buzzed in the background of your life for years, it goes quiet, because anxiety comes from knowing you are unprepared. It comes from knowing you are lying to yourself. When you're disciplined, you have nothing to hide. You know who you are. You know what you are capable of. You stop fearing the future because you are building it. You stop fearing other people because you know they cannot outwork you. You stop fearing failure because you know that failure is just data for the next attempt. You become free. But it is a cold freedom. It is a lonely freedom. It is the freedom of the wolf on the hill looking down at the sheep in the pen. They are warm, they are safe, they are fed, but they are trapped. You are out in the cold. You are hungry, but you are free. And that is the choice you have to make today. Do you want the warmth of the herd or the power of the hunt? You cannot have both. The strategist wrote his philosophy in exile. He was stripped of his status, tortured and cast out. And in that darkness, he wrote the words that would change the world. He didn't need the applause. He needed the truth. Your discipline is your truth. It is the only thing that is yours. They can take your money. They can take your job. They can take your reputation, but they cannot take your discipline. They cannot take your ability to endure. That is your fortress. That is your throne. Listen to me carefully. The world is getting softer. The world is getting louder. The world is getting more chaotic. This is your advantage. While they get weaker, you get harder. While they get distracted, you get focused. While they seek comfort, you seek the edge. You're going to scare them, not because you are trying to, but because you are a mirror reflecting everything they are too cowardly to become. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Let them fear. You have work to do. The path is cold. The path is steep, and you must walk it alone. But now you are ready. If you have made it this far, you are part of the rare few. You are the outlier. Prove it. Comment below. I choose the cold path. And if you appreciate content like this that arms your mind with weapons they don't teach you in school, do me a favor. Hit that like button for Mind Verity and turn on notifications. We are just getting started here. The old you is dead. Now go build the new one.